Silkspan is a great choice for sail making in scale models. It's lightweight, takes paint well, either by roller, which you'll see here, or by airbrush. In its lightest weights, it comes very close to real scale canvas. It's equally suited for furled or unfurled sails, but the one quality that sets Silkspan apart from all other materials you may want to consider for this purpose is its handling characteristics when wet. This one aspect is crucial when trying to convincingly make furled sails. This is a brief description of a method I've developed over the years, and it works well for my style of building, but it's certainly not the only way to do things. So, I would urge you, take this as a starting point, and adapt and experiment, and have some fun with it. So, let's get started. Here's everything you'll need for the first part of preparing the Silkspan for sail making. We have a large sheet of Silkspan, which I'll cut down to a more manageable size. A cutting mat makes a convenient work surface. I have some clamps, 2 different sizes, and a roller handle with a foam roller. You can pick these up at any paint supply store or hardware store, or if you have to, Home Depot. Acrylic paints, right out of the tube in this case. A water bottle and a pair of scissors. I'm going to be making a sail for a Beetle catboat at 1/48 scale, and I'm cutting the sheet to a size that will give me about 3 or 4 sails with a bit left over. This excess is necessary for a couple of reasons. In almost every instance, you'll want the Silkspan to have some color, whether it's a dingy gray or a warm off-white or whatever. You're going to need to mix a color for that. If you're working on a large project, say a ship with many sails, you'll want the color to be fairly consistent. And while it's not strictly necessary for the color of all your sails to match perfectly, if you introduce too much variation, it could become a distraction. Or, if you ruin a sail while fabricating it, and that color is hard to reproduce, you'll be very happy you have enough sail material readily available to make another. Also, you'll need extra material to make tablings and reinforcements at the stress points for the sail. Once it's down to a workable size, lay the sheet out on the mat and give it a couple of spritzes with the water bottle. Now for this demonstration, I'll just be using titanium white right out of the tube. But if you're mixing a custom color, now is the time to get that done. Mix a lot, more than you think you'll need to cover all the Silkspan you have to prepare. You really only want to do this once. Load the roller up and start applying the paint. Now at first you don't have to be too concerned, you just want to get the paint onto the Silkspan. Spread the paint around until you can no longer see through it, and try to avoid putting any large wrinkles in the sheet. Small ones are okay, but the larger ones should be avoided. If you do create a large wrinkle, you can deal with it by simply lifting the corner of the sheet closest to that wrinkle and carefully roll the paint towards it until you get to the end. Then just drop the corner. Strive for a nice consistent coat at this point with no globs or hot spots. When you think you've got it well covered, finish up by rolling over the whole surface in a uniform manner, overlapping each pass by about 1/4 of the roller's width. Use decreasing pressure as you roll. You don't want any stripes in your final finish. When you're satisfied, put 2 clothespins on one end and the 2 heavier clamps on the other. Then gently pick it up and carefully transfer it to the edge of the table where it can hang over until it's dry. Just make sure that none of the wet sheet touches the edge of the table. Now that the Silkspan is thoroughly dry, we can actually start laying out the sail. I use a template with all the relevant information right on it. It has the location of the sail batten pockets, the panel lines, the reef points, and the spacing for the 5 mast hoops. I pick a spot on the sheet that leaves plenty of room on all 4 sides and trace the shape, adding in the other details as well. Using a 5H pencil and fairly light pressure, I draw in the first panel line. I move the ruler about a 32nd of an inch to the right and draw in a second line. This creates the appearance of a double seam. I do this on both sides of the sail. If there are any sail markings that need to go on, this is the time to do it. I use dry transfer letters and numbers whenever I can. In this particular case, 16-point numbers seem to fit very nicely with the 1/4 inch scale. Strips are marked and cut from a piece of scrap silk span. Make sure you use a brand new blade to do this. Now it's time to start adding the details. And for this, we're going to need a few things. First, Elmer's glue. Next, an old brush, not too big, something to hold the glue, and a bit of water. A small piece of dry waxed paper. The strips I cut earlier. A pair of tweezers makes handling those strips a little easier. And the single most important element in this process, the travel iron. This is what makes the process of applying the details almost instant. It's also the thing that will get rid of any of those small wrinkles left in the silk span from the painting process. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to get up to temperature, and then you can use it without that annoying power cord. Start by taking the wet brush, picking up some of the glue, and painting along one edge of the sail. Here we're starting at the foot of the sail. Be careful not to put too much glue on at this point. Remember, less is more. Take one of those strips and place it just off the sail. At this point we're starting at the foot, so that's where I'm placing this. And I'm placing it and holding it down off the sail with one finger and dabbing it along its length with my other hand. Now it doesn't show up in the video, but the silk span is beginning to pucker where I applied too much glue. This will cause trouble, as you'll see in a moment. Take the dry wax paper and the iron and gently tamp one end down. When it's firmly anchored, run the iron along the rest of the sail's edge. Not too much pressure. Peel away the wax paper and make sure the glue has taken hold along the entire length of the sail's edge. If any part hasn't stuck, just take a bit more glue and a little heat, as you see me doing here. Before going much further, make sure the sail hasn't been glued to the paper down below. If it has, that's an indication that too much glue has been used. Free it immediately and check the reverse side for damage. This could make the sail unusable, as your chances of touching up the sail are slim at best. If the sail is alright, continue around all 4 sides of the sail, and then flip it over and do it again. You'll also want to add in any corner reinforcements or reef points at this point before going any further. Once you're satisfied with the details, all that remains is to cut the sail free from the excess. Here you can see we have a nice, neat sail that comes much closer in scale appearance than any cloth ever could. And again, a reminder, for this demonstration, I'm only doing the one side of the sail. In order to impart some shape to the sail, I carved a mold from basswood. Once I had the shape I wanted, it was sanded down, given many coats of shellac, with a wet sanding with 400 grit paper in between each coat, then buffed out with 5 or 6 coats of butcher's wax on 4-row steel wool. Now, to give the sail some body, mix water and a small amount of glue and brush it onto the sail. Then lay the sail onto the mold and continue brushing and massaging the shape until you're satisfied with the appearance. You can add more water if you need with a little bit of glue, but use it sparingly. Once I'm happy with the overall shape of the sail, I let this dry for at least an hour, but longer is better. Now, there should be enough wax on the mold and little enough glue on the sail to prevent sticking. Once it's dry, gently peel away the sail from the mold, and at this point it should retain most, if not all, of its new shape. This concludes parts 1 and 2. In part 3, we'll see the sail installed on the spars and my somewhat seat-of-the-pants approach to furling sails. This will also be where Silkspan's wet handling characteristics really shine through. So thanks for watching, and see you soon.